everyone, this is Sarah. Welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this lovely ladies hat for winter, and it has this adorable little bow if you want to add it on. It's flared at the bottom and it's the perfect ladies hat. Now I wrote this pattern about 5 years ago and I originally called it the Sequin Ladies Hat. And that's because I had designed it in a yarn called Sequin Diva. Well, they no longer make that particular yarn. And when someone asked me if I had a fancy ladies hat for winter, I said, sure, I can do this one, update the pattern, and make a brand new video. This blue one is made with I Love This yarn in metallic. For today's demonstration, we're going to be using Red Heart with Love in metallic in this color called light gray. And I really like it because it has a little bit of a silver tone to it. You can use any worsted weight or medium weight number 4 yarn for this project. It doesn't have to have the metallic or sparkle yarn going through it. Any worsted weight number 4 will work. Now you can find this free updated crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath the video. So I am going to be using this Red Heart with Love metallic in the light gray color, and you're going to need about 3.5 ounces of whatever yarn you choose to make your hat out of. We're going to be stitching today with our eye hook, and I'm going to be stitching with a 5.25 millimeter crochet hook. Now I know that some of the new boy hooks have changed their sizes. My original eye hook was a 5.5 and this one is a 5.25. You can use either one, just really watch your gauge as you go along to make sure the hat's going to fit you. Now the hat is made to fit about a 19 to 20 inch head, and remember, hats do stretch a little bit, so don't make it too big. You're going to need a needle for weaving in ends and also for sewing on that pretty bow, and then of course you'll need your scissors. We're going to be starting at the crown of our hat and then working our way down. We're going to begin with a slip knot. We're going to chain 5. We're going to be forming this chain 5 into a circle. So we'll put the tail of our yarn over our hook and pull it through that loop, and then just snug that down. Then we'll make a stay knot so that our chain 5 will stay knotted. All right, now we're going to put our hook in that chain 5, pull up a loop, and chain 3. And this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And then we're going to stitch 9 more double crochets around this chain 5. And you'll notice as I double crochet, I'm going to be stitching over this tail of yarn. So we'll go in our chain 5, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And we'll continue this on around till we have 10 double crochets, and make sure you count that chain 3 as your first double crochet. All right, let's see how many I've stitched. Here's my chain 3 that counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I need to stitch 1 more double crochet. Uh-oh, I got a knot in my yarn. I have to fix that. All right, let's go ahead and join to the chain 3. with a slip stitch, and then we'll chain 3. I'm going to take a second and fix that knot in just a minute, but before I do that, I want to show you that if you turn this over and you gently pull on that tail of yarn, that hole is going to close because we stitched over it, and then we can just come back in with our needle and weave that in, and our hat does not have a hole in the top. Our chain 3 is going to count as our first double crochet. We're going to double crochet in the same stitch as that chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets around. So we'll go from having 10 double crochets in the first row to having 20 in the second row. So I'm stitching 2 double crochets in each of the 10 double crochets around. All the way around. Then when I get back to my chain 3, I'll join with a slip stitch. Alright, I've completed my 20 double crochets around. I'm going to join to the top of my chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Now for row 3, we're going to go ahead and stitch a stitch right in the same stitch as our chain 3. Then we'll stitch 1 stitch in the next stitch, or double crochet, because we're stitching only double crochets at this point. Alright, so now in the next stitch I'm going to stitch 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. And this is the way that the pattern will work for row 3. 1 double crochet in the next stitch and 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2, 1 and 2 all the way around, and then we'll join again to the top of our chain 3. So we're stitching 1 double crochet in the next and 2 double crochets in the next double crochet, repeating all the way around till we reach the top of our chain 3. I've completed row 3, stitching 1 and 2, 1 and 2 all the way around, and on row 3 you should have 30 double crochets. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3, and again chain 3. And now we're ready for row 4. Well, row 4 we're going to stitch a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets, and then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the next. And so the pattern or repeat for row 4 is 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets, and then 2 double crochets in the next. One double crochet in the next 2 double crochets, and then 2 double crochets in the next double crochet. And so that's our repeat for row 4. We'll work all the way around, and then we'll again join to the top of our chain 3. I finished that 4th row, and on the 4th row you should have 40 double crochets. We're going to again join to the top of our chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Alright, so now we're ready for row 5. We're going to stitch a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, And this time we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 3 double crochets. And then we'll stitch our 2 double crochets in the same stitch. There we go. And that's the way the repeat for row 5 will be. 1, 2, 3 individual double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3, and then 2 double crochets in that same stitch in the next stitch. So 1, there we go, and 3, and then 1 and 2 in the next stitch. So we're doing 3 and 2. And we'll repeat this, moving all the way around again and joining to the top of our chain 3. Three and 2, 1 double crochet in the next 3 and 2 double crochets in the next. Repeat all the way around and then join to the top of the chain 3. I finished that 5th row, and on the 5th row you should have 50 double crochets. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3 again, and again chain 3. And this is our last increase row. So we'll put a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3. And on this row, we're going to put 1 double crochet in the next 4 double crochets. Then we'll do 2 double crochets in the next. Pull out some yarn here. All right, and that's the way the repeat for row number 6 will be. 1 double crochet in the next 4 double crochets. I keep getting caught on those metallic threads. That's something you got to look out for when you're using metallic yarn. All right, so there's my 4 double crochets, and then 2 double crochets in the next. And we'll repeat this all the way around, doing 4 and 2. One more. And then 2 together. And again, we'll repeat this all the way around. To our chain 3, and then we'll join again to our chain 3. So I've completed row 6, and I have 60 double crochets around. Now for row 7, we're not going to do any increases. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each double crochet around. And this is where you need to take a second and measure that hat and make sure it's going to fit around your head, because we're not doing any more increases. 1 double crochet in each double crochet around. And we'll work 1 double crochet in each double crochet around and join back to our chain 3. I've completed row 7, and because we didn't do any increases, row 7 also has 60 double crochets. And we're going to repeat row 7 for 5 more rows. And those 5 more rows, of course, will have 60 double crochets. And we'll do them exactly the same. 1 double crochet in each double crochet around. We'll join to the top of our chain 3 and chain 3. And we'll repeat that. Repeat row 7 for 5 more rows. I have completed my 12 rows, and then those last 5 rows of double crochet where we repeated row 7, and we should be at finishing up row 12. I've gone ahead and joined to the top of my chain 3, but I'm only going to chain 1. That's because we're going to be stitching slip stitches in the front loops of the next row, and that's going to give us that little hat band look. Let me grab this one so you can see what I'm talking about. Right here is a row of front post slip stitches. Then we're going to stitch 2 rows of single crochet. Then we'll stitch another front post row of slip stitches, and then we'll go back to doing double crochets to flare out the bottom of our hat. But don't worry, I'm going to walk you through that. It's not as hard as it looks. So you'll look on your hat. Make sure you have your hat facing this way with the outside out. And you can see on the top where those chains are, they sort of look like braids. And there's 2 loops. There's a loop on this side and a loop on this side. The front loops are the loops that are facing you. The back loops are the loops that are facing away. And we're going to place 1 slip stitch in each of the front loops. So we'll go in, pull the loop through, and then pull that loop through the loop on our hook. And we're only going through the front loops. And that's going to give us just that cute little edge that makes it look like we have a hat band on our hat. Now I do suggest that you don't pull too tightly, or when you're stitching this row, you can end up with it being just a little bit puckered. Because we still want the hat to be able to stretch. So we're going to work all the way around, working in the front loops only, stitching slip stitches. Again, the front loop is the loop that's facing you. And after we finish this row, we're going to come back in and stitch on the back loops as well. So we're just working around, stitching 1 slip stitch in each of the front loops. I've completed that row of slip stitches working in the front loops only. I'm going to join to that first slip stitch with a slip stitch. There we go. And we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to look at where we were stitching. We stitched in the front loops, and now we're going to stitch in those back loops. And you'll notice here is our slip stitch row, and then there's that row of loops we didn't stitch in. And we're going to stitch a single crochet in each of those loops. So just put your hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. Now you have to really look, make sure you don't go in the wrong stitch, because you don't want to go in the stitches where you did your slip stitches. You want there to be that nice braid looking row of stitches. So just take your time, and I sort of use my thumb and sort of push it forward. Then I can see that stitch, and I can go right in there and stitch my single crochet. Just take your time and stitch one single crochet in each of the back loops of row 12. And see how that looks? Here's our row of slip stitches. Here's our row of single crochets. And we'll just work our way around the hat. Like I said, I sort of pull it forward, push it down with my thumb, and then I can see those stitches to stitch in, making sure I don't stitch in those slip stitches that I just made. We want to make sure we're not doing that, or it will mess up the look that we're going for. Alright, we'll do this all the way around, and then we'll join back to our first single crochet. I've completed this row of single crochets stitching in the back loop only, and this is the way that it should look. Here's your slip stitch row, and then this is your single crochet row. Alright, so when we get back around, we're going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch and then chain 1. And this next row, we're just going to stitch a single crochet in each of the stitches around, and we'll be going through both loops like we normally do. So we'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. Just like we normally do, we're going through both of those loops and just stitching a row of single crochets. And remember, your stitch count remains the same because we still have only 60 stitches. Even though we're doing different stitches, the count is the same because we haven't done any increases. So we're just going to stitch a single crochet in each of the single crochets around, and then again we'll join to the chain, or I'm sorry, we'll join to the first single crochet, not the chain 1. And that's the way that it should look. I have completed that second row of single crochets, and I'm going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to do another row like we did here. We're going to do slip stitches in the front loops only. So we'll go right in that front loop and stitch a slip stitch. There we go. So I'm stitching one slip stitch in each stitch around, stitching in the front loop only, just like we did on this row up here. There we go. Alright, we'll stitch all the way around. We'll join to the first slip stitch, and then we can start making the flared portion of our hat. I've completed that row of slip stitches. I'm going to join to the first slip stitch with a slip stitch, only this time I'm going to chain 3. We are again going to be stitching in the back loops, so let's roll that down like that, like we did before, so we can find that row of stitches that we didn't stitch in, or the row of loops I should say. And what we're going to do is we'll go in the first loop and stitch 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2. And then the next loop, we're only going to stitch 1. The next loop, we'll stitch 2 double crochets. Then the next loop, we'll only stitch 1. So we're stitching in the back loops, but we're increasing every other stitch. So we have 1 double crochet, which is our chain 3. Then the next stitch, we stitch 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And we'll do this all the way around, and this is going to cause our hat to have that flared edge. Alright, there we go. So again, we're stitching in the back loops, and we're stitching 1 double crochet in the first loop and 2 double crochets in the next. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. One double crochet in the next, and 2 double crochets in the next. And we're going to repeat this, working all the way around our hat, stitching in those back loops. And you can see how this row of slip stitches is also sticking up, and it gives us a nice hat band for our hat. Alright, so we're just going to continue this on around, working in those back loops, stitching 1 and then 2 double crochets in the next. Alright, we'll do this all the way around, then we'll join to the top of that chain 3. I've completed that row of double crochets, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, working in the back loops, and you can see how those 2 rows look. They give us that cute little hat band sort of look. I'm joining to the top of my chain 3 and chain 3. Now you'll notice that this row does look a little bit ripply. Don't panic. This next row is going to help that lay nice and flat, because all we're going to do is just stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around. We're not adding any more increase, just length, because we're just stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, and it's going to help it still flare out but not be ripply. This hat is not intended to have a ripple edge. Although, if you would like it to have a ripple edge, you could put 2 double crochets in each stitch on those back loops, and it would be super ripply. But see how that's already causing that to flatten out, because we want the edge to flare but not ripple. Alright, so I'm going to continue around, stitching 1 double crochet in each double crochet around. I completed that row of double crochets, and you can see it flattens it out nicely. It's not all rippled, it's nice and flared. Alright, so I joined to my top of my chain 3, and I'm going to just chain 1. And this last row is just a row of single crochets just to help it hold its shape and give it just a little bit of stiffness so it sticks out like we want it to. So we're just going to stitch a row of single crochets. And again, we'll do this all the way around the brim of the hat. And then when we're finished, I'm going to show you how to make that cute little bow that adds just the right touch to this lady's hat. So I'm working all the way around, stitching 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets around. I completed that last row, which is 1 row of single crochets. I'm going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch and cut my yarn. I'm going to pull that loop to the inside. And then I can just weave this in. And then the last thing we're going to do is make that cute little bow that just gives this hat just a little extra touch. All right, let's get that in there. And our hat is ready to wear or add a cute little bow. All right, let's make our bow. When we begin, we're going to begin with a slip knot, but I want you to have about 8 inches of a yarn tail because we're going to use that yarn tail to attach the bow to the hat on that side. All right, so let's make our slip knot, and we're going to chain 21 chains. All right, I have 21 chains. We're going to begin in the second chain from the hook. We'll put a single crochet in that second chain, and then we'll stitch a single crochet in each chain across. And this is going to give us 20 single crochets. I have stitched a single crochet starting in the second chain from the hook in each chain across. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Now I'm going to place a single crochet in the first single crochet and in each single crochet across. There we go, got a little string. Those metallic threads get me, don't they? All right, so I'm stitching 1 single crochet in each single crochet across. And again, I'm going to have 20 single crochets. Last single crochet, chain 1 and turn. Now what we're going to do for 4 more rows is just repeat what we just did. Single crochet in each single crochet across, chain 1 and turn. And you need to have a total of 6 rows all together. So we're repeating row 2 4 more times. So I've stitched a repeat of 6 rows of 1 single crochet in each stitch, 20 stitches wide. Now I'm going to cut my yarn again, but I'm going to leave a nice long piece for attaching that end of the bow to the hat. We'll just use it to tack it down. So you'll need to have a piece on both ends. All right, so now we're going to take another piece of yarn about 24 inches long. And we're going to use this for the center of our bow. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrunch our bow down. We're going to take our yarn and I like to fold it in half. And we're going to put it around the bow. Tie that initial tie. Make sure everything's even. and tie that tie just like that. And I'll give it another tie. All right. Making sure everything's nice and even. Off just a little. And then we take these and wrap it around the bow in the center. And that's going to give it a nice big center. All right. Then we'll take those loops and we'll pull them through underneath with our hook. There we go. Again, making sure everything looks good. Don't worry about these two ends. We're going to use those. And then I'll take these and I'll make a knot, make sure it's going to stay put. And now we're ready to put it on our hat. And you need to decide where you want to put it. I like to put it over to the side like this, but you can put it wherever you want. So the first thing I do is I take these and I go in between those two stitches and I pull one through to the inside. Then I come up in between those two stitches up here and I pull the other one through. Now, you've got to make sure the bow is where you want it and that it's not twisted up. There we go. All right, and then we just tie this on. This holds it in place. By tacking down the sides, it keeps it in place. Now, I like to use 3 knots, and you can always add a little frayed check or fabric glue if you feel like that knot is not going to hold. All right, so there's our bow. Looks a little wonky, right? So we're going to get it the way we want it. We'll grab our needle, that piece of yarn we started with. And I like to kind of puff it up a little just so that it's a little bit 3D. And I just stitch it like this, right across the bottom of the hat. And that's going to keep it in place. And it also kind of brings in the end of the bow so it has a nice finished edge. And then when I'm happy with the way that it looks, I'll just go underneath and weave that in until I'm confident it's going to stay put. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4. Just depends on how much yarn I have. Alrighty. So here's our finished ladies winter hat with a fun bow. This one, of course, is in silver and this one in blue. They're a lot of fun to make. They're fun to give, but they're so much more fun to wear.